Although the Conor vs. Chris showdown is already electrifying, the recent undercard fight announcements have sent shockwaves through the fight world. Moving on to the main event, the ongoing drama has intensified as Eddie Hearn recently made a U-turn on his £1 million bet. Speaking to IFL TV, Hearn explained that his decision was influenced by regulations beyond his control. According to him, when he initially proposed the wager, Ben Shalom quickly pointed out the British Boxing Board of Control's rules prohibiting licensed promoters from betting. Hearn further revealed that he recently received an email from the board reiterating this restriction, making it impossible for him to proceed with the bet.
Well, unfortunately, anyone smart enough knows what he's up to, and as I gave an interview today in the Ring magazine, when I stuck it on Shalom for the bet, which, you know, I'm not saying wasn't, you know, a real offer, but he quickly decided to quote the regulations of the British Boxing Board of Control to say, we can't bet, we're not allowed to bet. And actually, I can't be bothered to get it on my phone, but we all received an email from the board recently stating Regulation 30, which is that any member, i.e. licence holder, cannot bet, advise anyone else to bet, permit to bet on any event they have any involvement with. So this lot, for clicks and views and clout, decide to put out a video where they know I can't accept it.
Hearn also clarified that the proposed wager was never with Chris Eubank Jr., but rather with his promoter, Ben Shalom. He stated that Eubank was well aware of the betting regulations and accused him of using the situation for publicity. According to Hearn, accepting the bet would have resulted in a hefty fine, something he believed his rivals were attempting to provoke. He emphasized that he would never place a bet with Eubank Jr. under any circumstances, as he only gambles with select individuals.
And you know, and by the way, the bet wasn't even with Chris Eubank Jr. The bet was with Benjamin Shalom. But Eubank knows I can't bet. That's why it's putting up. And I would never have a bet with Chris Eubank Jr. Ever. Because there's a reason for that. And I only bet with certain people. Unfortunately, I will lose my license, and that's probably what they want me to do, is to comment on it and say, yeah, I'll take the bet, yeah. And then I get called before the license, and I get done for 100 grand. So I'm not falling into their tricks. It was a fantastic bit of clout, and it got them some views.
Speaking to Ring magazine, Hearn reinforced his stance by reading out an email from the British Boxing Board of Control. The email explicitly stated that no licensed member could bet or encourage betting on any event they were involved in. Hearn accused Eubank Jr. of using this situation to generate attention, stating that his rival was fully aware that accepting the wager would have led to disciplinary action. He also referenced Eubank Jr.'s previous fine for the egg incident, suggesting that his opponent was deliberately trying to create controversy.
Clever. I think it's easy to trick the public. I mean, just to kind of make sure the public are aware that following our little laugh and a joke with Ben Shalom about the £1 million, Ben Shalom stated that, I mean, it's a good way to get out of the bet, but it was true that promoters can't bet.
Okay.
So much so that the British Boxing Board of Control recently actually sent an email, which I'll show you now. So I'll read it out because I just want to put Eubank to bed because he's one for the views. Do you know what I mean? So it says, shall not directly or indirectly bet or permit, direct, allow or enable any person for the member's benefit or gain to bet on the result, progress, conduct of any other outcome of the connection therewith of a contest in which the member is participating or proposing to participate in any capacity of which the member has any influence, direct or indirect. And that is the reason that Chris Eubank done a video yesterday to try and get some views and some noise, because he knows I can't bet on the fight, and he knows that if I did, I would receive a fine, like him, of 100,000.
However, Eubank Jr. responded with sharp criticism, mocking Hearn for backing out. Posting on X, formerly Twitter, Eubank Jr. attached screenshots of Hearn's contradicting statements and wrote, "Big Boss promoter, Eddie the Weasel, Hearn won't be honoring his £1 million bet because he received an email." He compared Hearn's explanation to his own past controversy, adding, "This excuse is even more pathetic than the egg excuse for those 2 failed drugs tests. At least Conor got creative." An email. Adding to the criticism, Simon Jordan weighed in on the situation during a segment on TalkSport's boxing show. He highlighted that Hearn had initially proposed the bet to embarrass Benn, but now appeared to be backtracking. According to Jordan, a seasoned promoter like Hearn should have been fully aware of the betting restrictions before making such a statement. He dismissed Hearn's claim of being set up, calling it an excuse to avoid admitting his mistake.
Do you think we'll see the colour of Eddie's money in this bet, Simon?
Well, Eddie gave it the big one to try and diminish Ben, didn't he? He tried to make Ben look silly by offering him a £1 million bet. And apparently, Eddie doesn't know the governance of his own sport. As a promoter, a licensed promoter, he can't bet. And so, of course, Chris has called him out. And now Eddie, being the master snake oil salesman he is suggesting that it's a conspiracy theory that people want him to take the bet so he can get fined on his licence. Nonsense! He's the one that put the bet up.
Don Charles also echoed Jordan's sentiments, suggesting an alternative approach to resolve the dispute. He proposed that instead of placing a bet, the amount should be donated to charity. In his view, this would allow both parties to uphold their challenge without violating any regulations. He expressed confidence that Eubank Jr. would be open to such a solution.
Come on, Don, come in on this.
Can I throw my 2 pence worth? For the solution here should be they're not allowed to bet.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Why don't they then do it, change the word and do it for charity, a charity of your choice?
Yeah,
that's a lot of money. A donation, right?
Not
okay,
a donation.
Right.
Yeah.
Why don't they choose their own charities who they would like that £1 million to go? That's the way.
I think Eubank would go for that.
I'm not sure.
This entire controversy stemmed from a heated press event last month where Hearn unexpectedly proposed the £1 million bet to Ben Shalom. A resurfaced video showed Hearn enthusiastically suggesting that they place the wager in escrow to prove their confidence in their fighters. His bold challenge set off a chain of reactions that have since dominated headlines.
You have £1 million.
You want to do £1 million on Conor Benn?
In escrow tomorrow morning.
On what?
On what? On the fight.
You're going to bet £1 million on Conor Benn?
In escrow tomorrow morning.
Listen, he's got billions.
That's the first true thing you've said.
No, he's got a lot of money. He's inherited a lot of money.
Despite Shalom dismissing the offer on the spot, Eubank Jr. took it seriously and quickly responded with a formal acceptance. In a direct video message to Hearn, he called him out, challenging him to prove whether he was a man of his word or merely bluffing. Eubank Jr. insisted that the money should come from Hearn's personal funds and should be placed in escrow, ensuring a fair bet. In the post on X, he added, "I accept your £1 million bet on my fight against Conor Benn on April 26th. Put your money where your mouth is." Not long after, Conor Benn also joined the conversation, taking a shot at Eubank Jr. over his financial situation. Benn posted on X, writing, "You need to pay your 7-figure debts to Neymar Jr.'s site before you worry about any other bets you melt." This remark alluded to rumors that Eubank Jr. had significant poker-related debts involving football star Neymar. The tension between Eubank Jr. and Benn has been brewing ever since their fight was officially announced in January. With their showdown scheduled for April 26th at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, both fighters have continued to trade verbal jabs. Their long-standing dispute traces back to the cancelled 2022 bout, which was called off due to Benn's failed drug test. While the World Boxing Council later attributed the test results to excessive egg consumption, the controversy has left a lasting impact on their rivalry. Eubank Jr. has repeatedly alleged that Benn intentionally used banned substances, further escalating the animosity. Earlier this year, he even slapped an egg across Benn's face during a heated press conference, making a direct mockery of the doping controversy. The incident quickly went viral, fueling further discussions about their upcoming fight.
The family feud goes on.
However, the consequences of Eubank Jr.'s actions soon followed, as he was hit with a £100,000 fine by the British Boxing Board of Control. The hefty penalty sparked debate among fans and analysts, with some questioning the reasoning behind the steep amount. Robert Smith of the BBBOC later clarified that the fine was due to the nature of the incident, stating, "It was assault. Forget about the egg. He hit him with force, and it was premeditated." Hearn also reacted to the fine, expressing his belief that while the punishment was steep, it was justified. He acknowledged the viral appeal of such moments, but emphasized that certain lines should not be crossed. In his opinion, boxing should promote discipline and respect rather than reckless behavior. He pointed out that while promotional antics generate hype, fighters should remain mindful of the sport's core values.
Yeah, every fighter that I sign, if you don't win a world championship, you haven't got to the level that I hoped and we dreamt of. You know, every fighter that we sign, particularly from professional debut, that's the goal. It's not to win a WBA international title. It's not to win a Commonwealth title. We want to go on a journey with you to become world champion. And Ammo has got to come through this test on Saturday. And it is, for me, by far his toughest test outside of Hamza Shiraz. This is a real fight. So, yeah, of course, it's very special when you take a fighter from their professional debut to a world championship. And Ammo can do it if he stays focused. And I love what I see this week. But as always, the proof will be in the pudding.
If he does come through a very dangerous Patrice Volney, how far off do you think he could be from a world title shot?
I think he's there. You know, I think if Ammo wins on Saturday.
With all the ongoing drama leading up to the fight, veteran boxing commentator Adam Smith offered his take on the situation. He believed that Chris Eubank Jr. had already dominated the pre-fight build-up. From his strategic antics at press conferences to the psychological pressure he had applied on Benn, Eubank Jr. had played his role brilliantly. Smith also pointed out that the ongoing bets and public exchanges between Eubank Jr. and Eddie Hearn were adding to the excitement.
But the pre-fight build-up has been won decisively by Chris Eubank Jr. He's been brilliant the way he's controlled it, the premeditated egg smashing, the way he's dealt with Eddie Hearn, the riling of Conor Benn through the hands of Nigel Benn. And I think that the Benn camp have got to just watch their emotions, which they will. Tony Sims has got a massive job as Conor's trainer. But yeah, Chris just keeps going, doesn't he? Jibing every week. Now the bet with Eddie, and everything's just beautifully moving towards April the 26th at Tottenham Hotspur, a wonderful stadium for boxing. We had AJ Usyk there.
Meanwhile, legendary boxer Roy Jones Jr. assessed the fight from a technical standpoint, highlighting the difficulty Benn would face. He acknowledged that a perfectly placed punch could shift the fight in Benn's favor, but in his opinion, Benn's best shot at victory was an early knockout. If that didn't happen, he expected the fight to become increasingly difficult for Benn. Jones also credited Eubank Jr. for his growth as a fighter, attributing it to their time training together. He believed that Eubank Jr. had strengthened his fundamentals, making him a far more complete boxer than before.
Very tough fight for Conor. Not saying he can't win it because one big left hook could change anything. But to me, his best chance are to try to land a big shot. If that don't happen, or if he lands it and it don't hurt Chris, then it's going to be pretty rough for him because Chris is definitely an improved fighter. You understand me? And like, even the stuff he's doing now, he's going to continue to get better. But I think when he came down there with me for that year, it improved his foundation. You understand me? So it made him a better fighter. So he's going to be hard to beat for anybody, especially a guy that's smaller than him.
Stevenson, speaking to The Ring magazine, provided insight into the matchup while also commenting on Benn's personality. From his experience, Benn projected an aggressive and intimidating persona, but in private, he had a much friendlier side. However, Stevenson didn't let that influence his analysis of the fight. He pointed out that Eubank Jr. was often underestimated despite his technical skills. According to Stevenson, those overlooking Eubank Jr. were making a mistake, as his experience and ability made him a much more dangerous opponent than he was given credit for.
Divisions, really, to take that fight. You're smiling. So what's your take on that one?
I'm just smiling because, like, I met Conor Benn. Like, he's a cool ass dude.
He is.
He's very cool. Like, everybody talk about how mean he is, but like every time I ran into him, he was always like a really cool dude. He always showed me like good energy. With that fight, I think that's a hard task just because of Chris Eubank. He's like a guy with subtle boxing skills. Like, you ain't really noticing how like good he is, but he's a pretty good fighter.
While this fight is already one of the most anticipated matchups of the year, the undercard lineup has also caught attention. Ring magazine recently revealed a strong supporting card for the April 26th event, adding even more excitement. Alongside Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr., the event will feature Lyndon Arthur taking on Anthony Yard, Tyrone McKenna facing Dalton Smith, and Chris Billum Smith clashing with Richard Riakporhe. The fight card, stacked with competitive matchups, has been well received by boxing fans, who expect an action-packed night of explosive fights. Beyond the undercard fights themselves, drama continues to surround the Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. bout, with their recent interview with Piers Morgan fueling further controversy. Eubank Jr. once again addressed Benn's failed drug tests, refusing to accept his explanation about consuming large amounts of eggs. He openly accused Benn of damaging not only his own reputation, but also his father's legacy. The accusation accusations did not sit well with Ben, whose frustration was evident.
As they say, like father, like son. So if he's capable of cheating, did his father cheat?
I've shown more integrity and resilience.
That's the question that now arises.
You have done your whole career.
That's now the question that arises.
Then you have done your whole career. You're
Like
choosing
like
to
son.
fight a welterweight.
I don't
That's
believe.
you.
I
That's
don't
you.
believe his father didn't know what he was doing.
As tensions escalated, Eubank Jr. went even further, raising the question of whether Nigel Benn had also engaged in similar practices during his career, provoking an even stronger reaction from Conor.
I just don't believe.
As I say, it cleared 3
So
times
that
by
means
people who
that
are a lot smarter
Nigel
than you.
Benn could have been capable of doing the same thing in his career. That's
You don't know that.
no, I don't.
You're
But
just
that's the
talking rubbish. You're
questions
just
now.
talking
That's the
rubbish.
questions that have now arisen
talking rubbish.
because of
You know
what he
what?
did.
You're an idiot.
As the interview progressed, the hostility between the two fighters became even more apparent. Eubank Jr. firmly stated that no one had the right to put their hands on him, referring to Nigel Benn Sr.'s action of grabbing his throat. He warned that if it happened again, there would be consequences. However, Ben challenged Eubank Jr., questioning what those consequences would be if he decided to act on his emotions. The situation quickly spiraled out of control when Ben suddenly lunged at Eubank Jr., forcing security to intervene before things escalated further.
You're just upset
Me
that
and
your
you are
dad
fighting.
can't stand you and
I'm
my
not
dad has
upset.
my back. You are, that's all that
I'm not
was.
upset.
My dad put
Me
his
and you
hands
are
around
fighting.
again.
Whatever
What are you
happens
gonna do
between
about it?
us
My dad would put his arms around you again. What are you going to do about it?
No one
What are you
else.
going to do about it? Tell me. What
No
he done
one
to his
else
hand
can
back?
touch
Tell
me.
me. Tell
And
me.
if they do, there'll be
Tell me.
consequences.
Oh, consequences to what?
If
What,
anyone
I was
else,
to slap you right now?
if
What, if I
anyone,
was to slap you
if
right now,
anyone
what are you
else
gonna
touches
do?
me,
What, if I was to slap you right now, what are you going to do about it?
yeah, go on, go ahead.
Yeah, talk about my dad.
I'm not talking
Talk
about your
my
dad.
No,
But I told him.
but
I told him.
Get off me, please.
My old man would never touch you, so your old man's never going to touch
I'll
me.
never slap you.
Their deep-rooted rivalry is not just personal, it carries historical weight. The tension between them is fueled by the legendary clashes between their fathers, Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank Sr., over 3 decades ago. Now, on April 26, exactly 32 years after their father's first meeting, the next generation will settle their own feud in the ring. However, there is a notable difference in their support systems. Nigel Benn remains fully committed to his son's success, standing by him throughout this journey. In contrast, Chris Eubank Sr. has distanced himself from the fight, publicly voicing his disapproval due to concerns over weight-cutting risks. During the interview, the emotional strain between Eubank Jr. and his father became even more evident. At one point, Eubank Jr. discussed their fractured relationship, admitting that stepping out of his father's shadow had been one of the biggest challenges of his career. Unlike Conor Benn, who had received a more distant but supportive presence from his father, Eubank Jr. had always felt the weight of his father's influence. While he acknowledged that their bond was complicated, he also saw this fight as an opportunity to prove himself as his own man.
It got to a stage where I needed to step out of the shadow completely. It's a big shadow.
It is.
He's also in a big shadow.
You both are.
Mine's a blessing, though.
Mine was a blessing too, but it got to a stage where I realized I have to separate myself from this huge character that's always next to me. He's different. His father kind of let him do his own thing and kind of, you know, jump in and sink or swim. My old man was always next to me. And it got to a stage where I decided that I needed to walk my own path. He was not happy with that decision. That's the start of it. Then you have the situation with my brother passing away. That affected him in a deep way, affected all of us.
Despite their strained relationship, Eubank Jr. has not given up hope of his father being in his corner on fight night. He revealed that he had attempted to reach out, though he had yet to receive a clear response. He understood that his father was dealing with his own struggles, making the situation even more complicated. However, he also believed that a victory on April 26 could serve as a turning point in their relationship. Whether his father attended the fight or not, Eubank Jr. made one thing clear. He was going to step into the ring and handle his business. As the conversation shifted toward the potential consequences of the fight, Eubank Jr. made a stunning declaration. He announced that if he lost to Conor Benn, he would retire from boxing. Speaking with firm conviction, he explained that every fighter eventually reaches a point where they can go no further. For him, this fight represented that moment. He believed that if he could not defeat Benn, it would signal the end of his ambitions at the highest level.
He needs to be able to get over whatever demons he's fighting. Now, this fight, it's either gonna enable him to get over those demons, or unfortunately it's going to make those demons grow. I don't know. I still hope he's there on the night, just like his old man will be.
Do you think he will be?
I honestly don't know. You know, I hope and I pray that he is. And I will do things to try and get him there. But if he isn't, guess what? I'm still going to go out there and do the job.
In contrast, Ben had no such thoughts of retirement. When asked about the possibility, he dismissed it outright, showing confidence in his future. While he acknowledged that losses were an inevitable part of boxing, he did not believe this fight would be one of them. He admitted that losing to Eubank Jr. would be painful, but it would not define his career.
So you will retire if you lose?
Yes. You know.
Really?
There is a point in every fighter's life that they will reach when they can't go any further. If I can't beat Conor Benn now, then I've reached my ceiling. Which is why this fight is so deathly important to me. Because I don't want to retire. I don't want to give up. I don't want to sail off into the sunset. I still have things to achieve.
Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. remain unwavering in their self-belief. When asked about the outcome, Ben confidently predicted that he would stop Eubank Jr. within 4 rounds, showing no doubt in his ability. Meanwhile, Eubank Jr., drawing from his father's legacy, described the fight's result as a parliamentary procedure, suggesting that it was already decided. He later clarified that the weight of their family rivalry still played a crucial role, and that he was determined to honor the Eubank name in the ring.
Conor, what do you feel? You're younger, so...
Yeah, listen, I'm 28. He's done what he's had to do in his career. He's finished.
You wouldn't quit if you lost this fight?
No, of course not. Not that I plan on losing the fight, not that I think I will lose the fight. The reality is, you can lose fights. I will lose fights in my career. Not to this man.
Throughout the interview, the tension was undeniable, but one moment stood out. Piers Morgan attempted to mediate, urging both fighters to shake hands as a gesture of sportsmanship. However, Eubank Jr. flatly refused, dismissing the request without hesitation. According to him, there was no scenario where he would extend respect to a fighter he viewed as a drug cheat. Morgan pressed the issue, but Eubank Jr. remained firm. Instead of entertaining the idea, he abruptly left the interview, delivering a dramatic and final statement on his stance.
Conor?
He gets ironed out in 4 rounds.
What do you think happens?
The procedure will be parliamentary.
To quote your father.
Absolutely.
It's interesting that even in that moment, you're thinking of him. Mimicking the way he talks.
We are our father's sons. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, as they say. And I will uphold the family name.
Even after the interview aired, Eubank Jr. doubled down on his stance through social media. He issued a firm warning to young athletes, stressing the consequences of using banned substances. In a direct reference to Ben, he posted, "Kids, if you ever use drugs, you will lose all your credibility, your respect, and you will shame your family name. And just like Conor Nigel, I will never shake your hand." His message left no room for doubt. He was unwilling to forgive or forget.
In my eyes, if someone was to have pinned him down and jabbed a syringe into the side of his ass and squeezed it in, if that had happened and I saw it, guess what? He's still a cheat. He shouldn't have let it happen. It's his responsibility to protect himself at all times. He didn't do that. He's a cheat. End of story.
I'll give you one last chance.
Don't ask me again, Piers.
Just shake his hand.
Don't ask me again.
I tried. Thank you both for your time, and may the best man win.
He will. He will.
It's going to be one hell of a fight. That I do know. Thank you very much.
With fight night fast approaching, the stakes have never been higher. For Chris Eubank Jr., this is about more than just winning. It's about protecting his family's name and proving he's still at the top. For Conor Benn, this fight is a chance to restore his reputation and silence his doubters once and for all. But this isn't just about the main event. The undercard is stacked with exciting matchups that could steal the show. As the final countdown begins, fans have plenty to look forward to. So which undercard fight are you most excited about, or is all your focus on Eubank Jr. versus Benn? Drop your predictions in the comments.